Here we go. Back when they were still using that name for the United States. And cue the music. Here we go. This is an early beginning title sequence. Nothing really revealed about the game going on through here, just some quick screenshots. That's not a screenshot, that's a crotch shot. So let's move on. Now here we have the title scene, the title menu, and this is Final Fantasy VIII, the second original title released for the PlayStation 1 back in 1999. In fact, I think I remember it specifically was 9/9/99, the same launch date as the Sega Dreamcast. Now, a lot of people think this game is being inferior to its immediate predecessor, Final Fantasy VII, as well as inferior to its successor, Final Fantasy IX, so it kind of makes it sort of black sheep middle child of the Final Fantasy series on the PlayStation 1. But overall, I think it was still pretty good. It tried a lot of new things. Some of them were good, some of them were not so good, and we'll go see that once we get into the game. So I'm going to jump up into New Game and start this off. Now we will have our opening cinematic, and I'm going to keep quiet while that plays. Okay, our first bit of textual dialogue in the game is giving us the option of choosing a response to the question, "How are you feeling?" It's okay, I guess, or "My forehead hurts." Now, the reason why his forehead hurts is because he took a cut across the forehead from a fellow student, the guy in the white coat, which we'll see a little bit later on. But something I want to make note about this before I move on, before I make a decision, is that unlike in Final Fantasy VII, where your dialogue choices really had not a terribly big influence in the storyline, where you have, like, a person would go up to Cloud and ask him a question, he'll respond one way or another, and its only effect was to change possibly the outcome of that weird dating simulation game that happened about midway through the game. In this game, the dialogue choices have an even smaller effect as to what's going on. Now, some things can change, like the outcome of like in a test that we're going to have later on in the game, but it's really not significant. And another thing I want to point out as to the responses that you have the option of, it doesn't really strike me as being unusual that this character named Squall will respond in either of these two responses, whereas Cloud, for example, when Eris was asking him if he remembers her, he had the option of saying something like, "You're the slum drunk, right?" Which doesn't really make sense in the context of the storyline. In this sense, neither of these two questions, or really any of them that I can recall in this game, seem out of place. It's much more intelligently done, not really played for laughs. So even though it doesn't really have a big effect in the storyline, I don't feel too bad about choosing the funny option. I'm going to go with okay, I guess. Now we do have the option of naming our main character, Squall. Now I'm not going to change that name, even though I don't really like this one. It sounds kind of stupid. I'm going to go with it anyway, only to at best preserve the intended experience that the developers had in mind. Yeah. And you are? Why is there a window between his hospital room and the one next to him? I don't get that. She looks annoyed. We do kind of have control here. See? Boom! Student? Jeez. Jeez, trying to finish his sentences. That's a little weird. Obviously, the video wasn't supposed to be stalling like this. I'll try to fix that for future episodes. At the time, though, this CG video that we're seeing here was some of the best in any game that had been seen up until this point. For all the shock and awe that the Final Fantasy VII CG scenes had, 8 were just friggin' leaps and bounds ahead of it. And there's actually quite a bit more of it in this game than in the previous game, which is one of the reasons why it spans 4 discs instead of only 3. Even though the game really isn't any longer. Wait, what? No preparation? Jeez, putting them on the spot and everything. Haha. Jeez, she just keeps bugging him. Well, no. Sort of, maybe. Not really. Okay. What's going on is something I feel the need to explain a little bit about what's going on in this game before I go too far into it. And it's one of the things that I guess the developers kind of figured one of two things. Either that the potential players of this game had been following a lot of the press releases and all that kind of stuff that came out before it, and had basically been aware of all the information that they decided to leak out. Or they figured that the players are going to do exactly what I'm doing right now. Sitting down at this terminal and reading through all the tutorial basics and all that kind of stuff, trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Now, I'm not going to be doing all of that. I'm not going to be pulling out all of the information out of the Garden network here. But I'm only doing this so I can name my Guardian forces. Then I'm going to jump back out of this and proceed on with the game. Then, at the appropriate times, or at least times that I think are appropriate, I'm going to go and explain what's going on. Now, where we are is called the Balamb Garden. And, yeah, you're done. This is a military academy and a boarding school all sort of mixed into one, sort of like, maybe you could call it like a military school or something like that. And our character here, Squall, is a 17-year-old student at that school. Now, what's going on here is this large, ancient building here that something along the lines of maybe like 12 or 13 years earlier. Oh, hold on. I'll get to this later. Don't say anything. Yep. I kind of figured that Squall probably wouldn't do this, but I'm going to go and click yes anyway, because there's some dialogue that comes up that you're not going to be able to see otherwise. If not, then this girl with the funny hair is just going to walk away. Now, he's offered to give her a tour, but he's not actually going to just give her a tour of the entire place. He's not going to walk from place to place showing her everything there is to know. He is simply going to take her to the like the map kind of area and name off a few places. That other guy I just talked to gave us 7 playing cards. Now, one of the things I loved about this game, I spent a lot of time just doing this the first time I played through the game, was it had a card game which you could challenge people to. And I'm going to make sure I do that before the first episode is up. You just challenge people to this card game, and it's actually kind of fun. A lot of people don't like it. It's a love or hate thing. Some people hate it, some people love it. I'm one of the people who love it. And I like this game a lot more than I did the card game that was in 9. Didn't respond to that one. Katawaski? Okay. You don't know the headmaster's name, but you transferred to this school? What's wrong with you? Some tour, douche. Okay, that has something to do with what I was going to try and explain. This garden is basically like a military training school. Any child from the age of 5 to 15, and let's be honest, the majority of the kids coming to this place are orphans. They go and they come and decide to go and attend to this school. Now, they have the option of living there or they can commute there. I'm not sure if there's any sort of like tuition involved, but the idea behind it is when they graduate and they become what's known as a seed, a kind of like, no, I was already here, wasn't I? A seed is sort of like the ultimate soldier kind of thing that they have. He's doing fine. Is this sort of mercenary soldiers in this mercenary force they call seeds, and they're sent out. They become essentially employees of the school rather than students of the school, and they're sent out on missions and they're paid salaries and all that kind of stuff. Now, there are other gardens out there. There's the Balamb Garden, which is in another country, and another one to the north, which is where the girl with the crazy bedhead came from. And that was a smaller garden. It's her again. You can't really tell, but that's the same girl we were talking to earlier. She hasn't been named yet. She's running around trying to get Squall to go and participate in this garden festival thing. Yes. He's the only person who dresses like that. He's the only person with a distinctive scar on his head. Well, one of them. This is where the garden festival would take place at. Okay, the game crashed for me a few seconds ago, and it took me about 20 minutes to get up to the point that I'm where I left off now. So, if anything sounds a little different or I kind of repeat information, that's why. This is the garden. This is where the garden festival would take place at. Now, if you read through the computer terminal up there, there was a section in the garden's intranet that said something about the previous garden festival chair. Somebody named Willie, something like that, I don't know, was leaving the garden because students can't stay here forever, and the garden festival wasn't going to happen, although this person acknowledged that it probably wasn't going to happen anyway, since they were the only people that had a chance that ever volunteered to do any work on it. It's Bedhead again. What the hell? How did you get here so quickly? This chick is everywhere. Jeez. Anyway, we're going to leave this area, and I'm going to have to make sure I use the save states on my emulator a lot more often to make sure I don't encounter a whole lot more errors like that. This kid's ice skating. Jeez. Roller skating. Whatever. Okay, as I was mentioning before, there are multiple gardens, and their exact relationship with each other is a little hard to determine because, on one hand, they seem to cooperate a lot with each other, but on the other hand, they are clearly independent entities, such as the Balamb Garden that we're in right now, and the Galbada Garden. We do experience in the game some interactivity between the two, cooperation between the two, but on the other hand, they're run by different people, and the Balamb Garden, the one we're in right now, is the only one that seems to graduate students into their own military fighting force, like the Seeds. And it is also, even though it's not the largest of the three, is considered to be, by many, to be the elite of the three, because it is the only one that allows the use of Junctioning Guardian forces, and I'll explain that once we're done with this here. Ignore! Oh, is she? Rage! Oh, jeez. High kick. What? Disciplinary committee. Oh my god. No more hot dogs. You suck. It's the cafeteria, by the way. Whoops. Treep groupie, I'll explain that in a minute too. Well, in a few minutes. I'll get to it. Damn it, nothing happened. Something is supposed to happen here. I'm gonna go back in. What? Angry woman, jeez. No, there we go. Sad sack missed out on his hot dogs. You have to go hungry. Speeding? Is he ran in here? Let's go arrest that student for violation of Academy regulations. Okay, Seifer, along with these two, Fujin and Raijin, are part of what's called the Disciplinary Committee. It's a group of students in the school who I don't know. I don't think they're self-elected. I think they're actually part of a garden function, which is like in charge of policing the other students around. Now, it's something that I think he takes far too seriously. He's sort of a glorified hall monitor, pretty much, but he seems to take it very seriously. And Seifer, I will note in case you haven't noticed, is in fact the same guy that put the scar across Squall's head in the opening cinematic. That's where the dormitory is, if you didn't read it on the fence post out front. Squall's room is in here. Don't need to rest. Something I'll make note of here is this game, one of the things that it did quite differently than its previous installment was the physical proportions of the characters are much, much more normal sized than what you had seen in 7, which was super deformed characters. Even the battle, the character models you saw during the battles or during the cutscenes, which were much more realistically proportioned, were still a little unusual sized. Their heads were too big, their feet were too big. Parking garage, nothing we can do here. Their heads were a little bigger, their hands, their feet were too big compared to the rest of their bodies. But in this, everything seems, at least for the most part, to be normally proportioned. And that kind of has its upsides and its downsides. In some ways, the characters are less expressive. You can't really see their faces too well. And if you can, I mean, you have to be pretty close, and there are no facial expressions on any of these characters, even, and no facial expressions shown or anything like that. But it does seem a little bit less like you're less expressive. But on the other hand, the more normal sized allows for much more fluid and natural kind of movement. This is a training center. I'm not going to be doing anything here. I don't want to get into too many fights before I move into the game itself. But the characters seem a little bit more expressive with the ability to move, and we haven't really seen it yet, but we will later. And there's one more. There's a library. Yeah, we haven't gone to the library yet. This garden place is a pretty big area. Now, it's implied that they have a whole lot of students. Their exact number, I have no idea. But most of the students here have not made it to seed status yet. You see the uniform that you're seeing this girl wear and that boy wear? Those are the initiate or the student uniforms, not the actual seed uniforms. Squall is not a seed yet either. He is just a student in this place so far. Oh, is that a yawn? A little bit of back history. It's not really important right now. I'll get into that later. Much later. Okay, this garden place here is basically a military academy, as I mentioned maybe about 10 minutes ago. And when the students graduate, they join a force called the Seeds, which is a mercenary force. Now, although the garden itself is a pretty formidable military academy, they are quite small, and they don't really take any sides in any conflict other than the side of whoever pays them the most. So they fight battles and all that kind of stuff. And the card game I have a chance to play here, so I'm going to interrupt what I'm saying once more and play the card game. It'll take you a while for you to build up a good set of cards, but I'm going to play one game here. Whether I win or lose, it's alright. Now, you notice there are 4 numbers on each card, and obviously the higher the number, the more effective your card is going to be. So I'm going to choose the bottom 5, and oh, this card is so much better than mine. I'm going to lose this. See, I can't do crap about that. Oh, jeez. I'm gonna lose this. Okay, I can do something about that. That card is mine now. Whoever is left with the most number of cards is the person who wins So I have to be careful about what I'm doing here. Okay. I'm up. Oh, I'm down. I'm way down. I am way, way down. Way down. Way down. Oh, jeez. There's no way I can win this. I'm done. Doesn't matter what I do. I'm gonna lose. Whoever's left with the most number of cards on their side wins, and the winner gets to choose a card from the other side. And I lost my best card. That's unfortunate. Now, the different regions of the game that you play in, where let's say I challenge a person in Balamb here, they're going to have the basic set of rules for the game. If I go to, say, Galbata and challenge a person there, I'm going to have to play by the rules that are currently around the Galbata region. If I go to Dalit and I challenge a person there, they have their own set of rules, and the rules tend to migrate around or change as the game progresses. So individual rules may apply in one area that don't in another. New rules spread, old rules die out, and it makes these little changes to the way the game is played, and changes your effective strategy a little bit, depending on which place to place you happen to be playing in, which I think is kind of cool, because it keeps you on your toes a little bit, even though it does kind of make it difficult to understand the rules at any one point in the game. Well, anyway, I'm not going to end this episode yet until I finish this thing that we have with the instructor. So I'm going to equip my Guardian Force, which is your summon monster, and I'm going to head down south. And I'll continue what I was saying earlier in a minute once I finish this conversation. It's a big place, jeez. Oh, here's a draw point. Draw points work with the way magic works. It has something to do with the way magic works. I'm going to draw this Squall. He's not a character here, and we've got 5 cure spells that we can use. I'll get into that in a few minutes. I'll have plenty of time to discuss all this, I promise. Even though if you're a fan of this game, you already know what I'm going to say. Yeah, we already know how to junction a GF. I already did it like 5 seconds ago. Do you not understand that? Blah, blah, blah. She's dressed differently. Okay, she was dressed before in one of the Seed uniforms, the full-fledged Seed uniform. Oh, jeez. She left him behind. Now she's dressed in more casual clothes, which seem a little inappropriate for an instructor in a military academy, but whatever. We've hit the world map. Okay, the garden is... Oh, here's a view from the outside. And this is what the world map looks like. A little bit better looking than what we have seen in Final Fantasy VII. Better textures, better models, all that kind of stuff. But the... one of the things I think is a little bit weird about the garden, and it's something that I have quite a bit of time struggling against in the way I think about things, is it seems like they're raising a lot of child soldiers, which is something that I think is really screwy. And on the other hand, I have to think, like, on one hand, they're not just grabbing a bunch of 10-year-olds, even though a 10-year-old has the option of joining the military academy, no one is actually even allowed to fight until they hit 15. And if they don't graduate by the time they're 20, they're basically kicked out of the military academy. But it's not like they're just being taught how to pick up guns and shoot at enemies or anything like that. These kids are expected to learn like it's a normal school. It's not just military training. There's also a lot of things like I'm guessing they have a lot of general education courses and all that kind of stuff. And any time they're allowed to leave, they're not just being brought into the army and forced to stay there. But on the other hand, I have a hard time getting past the idea that this is a military academy for children. It's screwy. I forgot to give her a GF, so boom. While equipping, in order to make your characters use any abilities, like notice in that last battle, or instructor here, Quistis didn't have the ability only had the ability to attack. She couldn't use magic, she couldn't summon a guardian force, draw magic, which I'll get into a little bit, or use any items. She's just a base character who didn't really have the ability to do anything. Whereas Squall here did. And that does nothing. And the reason why is because he is in order to make your characters do anything, you need to summon, or you need to junction a guardian force. Now I only have 2 of them right now, so you notice I have room for quite a few of them. And as I get more characters, more and more of them will be equipped at any one time, because you can only have 1 per character at any one time. And it's really in your best interest to keep 1 junction to your character. But using the Guardian Force is really a necessary thing in this game, too, in order to get through. Oh my god, woman, I understand this crap. Where we are is the Fire Caverns, and this is a necessary place for every seed candidate to go through. I already know. What happens is, leading up to a final exam for the seed candidates to become full-fledged seeds, they have to go and do 2 things, or 3 things actually. They need to go and complete a written exam. They need to go and pass the written exam, by the way. Go to the Fire Caverns and succeed at the Fire Caverns. Then they have to go and take the final exam, which is something that hasn't really been disclosed yet. We'll get into that in the next episode. But here we go to the Fire Caverns. And every student that does this needs to have an instructor's support. Okay, you have 4 options. Whatever you choose has a direct effect on your ultimate outcome if you finally do become a seed. The closer you, I get more points for completing it in under the 10-minute mark, but I have more freedom to go and do things if I choose 40 minutes. I'll get more points versus having more freedom. And if you exceed your amount of time in there, you will fail. So I'm going to choose the minimum amount of time, because this is actually pretty damn easy. I'm going to end up finishing this with like 2 or 3 minutes to spare. So I'm not going to have any problems with doing this in under 10 minutes. But notice the clock will be ticking at all times, including during battles, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to do this quickly. Now an instructor's job is to support you in battle and make sure you do not die. The kids that are not... Yeah, sure. It's not your midriff or anything like that. The amount of, the kids that are not seeds themselves are pretty well protected, I have to say, in this area, because the instructors are there to make sure they don't die, because it's reasonable to believe that anyone that goes near the Fire Caverns will be in some significant danger. Now, if they don't succeed and they go and corpse over, then okay. maybe they shouldn't have been there. But this is just to make, I guess, just to make sure that they're safe and not make any stupid mistakes. Now, what I'm doing right now is drawing magic. Now, one of the things I do kind of like about this, though it's obscuring a lot of people in, was the way that magic is portrayed in the game. It is portrayed very much like magic is an item. Kind of like a very different way than it was in Final Fantasy VII, where magic was quite literally items that you equip on your characters. In this case, you gain magic by drawing it from an enemy. I have 5 cures, 8 thunders, and 4 scans. That is the total amount of magic that my character possesses. Now I can go in Junction. I can't do it yet. I'll explain that later. But I can only use that magic that number of times. If I try using it more than that, I won't be able to. And you can stock more and more magic from my enemies by use ice attacks. Stock. And you have to draw things from enemies too in order to gain that power, to figure out what it is. We have fire. I'm going to summon a guardian force that does ice attacks just to try and get out of this fight quick, because I really didn't intend to fight these things right now. Hurry up. Notice the Shiva's active time bar and life and HP number have replaced Squalls on the battle menu there, and that is because any damage that your character takes is actually taken by the guardian force instead. And that is quite useful in boss battles if you don't want your character to take damage. There we go. Your guardian force can take a hit, powerful hit that you know is coming in advance instead of your characters. I don't want to get into too many battles because I don't really want my character's levels to increase, as strange as that may seem. But there's a reason for that. Okay, I'm gonna head right to the boss because I want to get out of this. Damn it! What? Should have been dead. Die. And it's dead. I've wasted nearly half of my time just running around like an idiot. There's a draw point there that I'm not going to go and try yet. Pretty sure I can come back and do that later though, but it's not really important. Okay, let's do this thing. Okay, the objective here is to gain a low-level guardian force, and that will be a front. The design of this monster is going to heavily influence its design through the later Final Fantasy games. Now I'm going to attack this thing. I'm going to use ice attacks to my best of my ability, even though I don't really have too many of those. And for the most part, I'm just going to hit the thing a bunch of times. It really shouldn't be too hard. I do not actually possess the ability to either my characters use store magic attacks, because I didn't choose that ability in the junction window. Instead, I chose to have our characters use items instead. So it's a trade-off. You want to have the ability to use guardian forces or items, or magic or items. Didn't like that. This monster is not going to be tough. We'll be fine. Look at Squall's weapon here, by the way. It kind of just looks like a sword, but it's actually something called a gun blade, which is a concept that I guess was invented for this game, which is sort of a hybrid between a gun and a sword. Although it doesn't seem to function in any way as an actual sword. But this kind of thing did appear later on in the series. I'm pretty sure Lightning has some sort of variation of the gun blade, where hers is a little more functional like a sword or a gun independently. Sometimes she's using it as a sword, sometimes it folds it up, she carries it like she's carrying a rifle. Not bad for a human. I mean, it's kind of a weird, impractical design, but it's cool for this kind of thing. And it's not a terribly common weapon, I think, in this world. The only two people in the garden that have ever trained on using a gunblade would be Squall and Seifer. And it's going to be remarked upon later that finally they're going to get an opportunity to have a seed, which is a gunblade specialist. Not to say that Squall and Seifer's gunblades are pretty much similar. In fact, Seifer's weapon is a little bit more like a semi-automatic pistol, whereas Squall's is held more like a sword and is based on a revolver design. But the similar kinds of weapons. Oh yeah, we're good. But when we're attacking with Squall's weapon, I hit the R1 button as he's swinging down to attack, and that goes and it like fires the weapon and does a little bit more damage. It's like a critical hit, which makes Squall essentially the most useful character in the game. Okay. Damn it! Why are you doing this to me? Do you realize I have to get outside before we run out of time, right? There's nothing here. Let's get out of here. The counter's gone, but I'm pretty sure I still have to get outside before my final 2 minutes are up. I do have time, I think. Son of a bitch. Can't run away. What's going on here? Die, bomb, die! Die! What is your problem? Now it's dead. I was expecting that thing to explode on me. Like I said before, I think the timer is still counting even though you don't see it. So I'm just going to get the hell out of here without touching the draw point. Maybe I can come back in here later and pick it up. But I don't want to waste all of my time. Run! Wait, I'm not outside yet? What's going on? Son of a bitch. Okay. Clear shot to get outside. And there we go. We're good. Now all that's left to do is head back to the garden, and we'll have the chance to go and move on to the seed final exam. But I've been playing this game for quite a while, and it's kind of long for a first episode, so I'm going to bring this episode to a close. So, thanks for watching. See you next time, where we'll go and get back to the Balamb Garden.